we now train and offer consultation, high-level consulting to our clients to show them how to do that on a whole different level. But make no mistake about it, dealt with thousands of insurance claims, have reviewed thousands of insurance estimates, and I'm still relevant today because I know what State Farm and USAA and Chubbs and Vericlaim and all the rest of them, what they're doing today. And that's what I think what it takes to remain relevant is the act of doing by being an operator and by being a practitioner.
So what made you get into the insurance restoration game?
I had it was a sales ad that I responded to for a sales position at a local roofing company in just before the millennium, 1998, I believe, and went there to apply for a position as a sales rep. It's funny that you asked that because even though I knew nothing about roofing, knew nothing about construction, I used to do landscaping, so I knew about labor. And as far, as deep as I ever got with construction was like building a retaining wall or a patio or a deck maybe even. But, to build a roof or drywall or any of those things, trim, carpentry, none of those. I knew nothing about mechanical or electrical or anything about plumbing or engineering. Like literally, my wife would not ask me to hang a mirror on the wall because that would be the sure way to mess it up. So I was the most unlikely person in the world to go after a job like that. But I thought maybe I could do it. I had enough confidence that I could maybe do it. And I remember in the first training session that I took for that first company, they were talking about like the ridge and eave and drip edge and rakes and all of that. I didn't know what any of that stuff was. I mean, I got all that mix of fascias. Oh, Lord. I was so confused. And that really came across. Like, I think if you have knowledge, it helps, it's like anything. It helps you breed confidence. And in sales, that confidence helps you sell. So I was actually not very successful. I'd love to say, oh, I got right into it, hit the ground running, and made millions of dollars. It wasn't like that at all. I mean, I was a complete dunce, complete failure. I didn't know how to do that stuff at all. But it was a shocking idea to me that these little bit of hail would completely, if it hit the roof, just little size hail, if it hit a roof, then that roof completely needed replaced, and the insurance companies had no problem really paying for it, and all that the client had to pay was the deductible. Like, that just baffled me. I'd already done some sales, and so usually with sales it's hard because you have to come up with the money. That's everything about making the sale, is people don't feel like they can afford it, right? So this is something the roof is their most important part of their home. It's one of the most important really thing in their life, whether they know it or not. And the fact that it is damaged and it must be replaced, they have insurance, the insurance company's happy to pay for it. So it just really that idea baffled me, but I just didn't do very well. I was a slow learner, and I was kind of in and out of it. I didn't do well with the first company. I don't really, think they didn't give me a lot of good leads, and I didn't get a lot of good leads of my own. So it was on, to try another company, and then I went and dibbled and dabbled with other things. And then in 2004, Hurricanes Gene, Charlie, Ivan, and Francis busted down the middle of Florida, and I had a friend who was a roofing subcontractor in Florida, and he was dating my wife's best friend. So one of his trips back to town in Ohio where we lived, we went out to dinner, and he was telling me about everything that was happening in Florida. And he goes, Chad, you wouldn't believe it. You should go there. You'll make millions of dollars. Like, you'll be on a ladder and people come up and grab a hold of your leg and they'll say, please come over and sign me up for a new roof. And I was like, and he thought his idea was that I was, outgoing and maybe personable, and so therefore I must be an incredible, and he knew I had done roofing sales, and so in his mind I was like a roofing, sales rock star, even though couldn't be further from the truth. But long story short, went to Florida with basically everything that I had, not much. My wife was cheering me on from home, and I said, I'm going to go down there and make it work, baby. And I did. I went down there, long story, but I worked, the first company that he had got me on with was really a joke. They didn't have proper licensing set up. Their office was like in the out of a storage unit with no signage. They didn't even have contracts. They had no business cards, no brochures, nothing, literally nothing. And so what I did was I had them point me to where some of the hail damage or the hurricane damage was, and I went to a Publix, and they used to have, they maybe still do, they have like real estate publications out in where you first walk into the grocery store, and they show like all the houses for sale, like real estate listings. So I picked up one of those, and I was looking for the type of neighborhood that wasn't too exclusive to where I couldn't get in, like gated entry, but also wasn't like, in a very low income houses where my average size roof would be small, but somewhere where it could be sort of middle of the road. And at the time, they didn't have Google Maps and all that nonsense. I had a Rand McNally map book that I opened up to the street from the index and had to find it on the grid, and drove to those areas, scouted them out, went to Office Depot. Remember, they didn't have contracts, so I got bid proposals. I bought them, their generic bid proposals. At the time, they did not have those in triplicate or duplicate. So I had to buy carbon paper to put between two copies, and that was a contract, right? And I went up and had them stamp like a little makeshift type logo on the top of it. It wasn't a logo, but it was something they could make real quick, like a stamp. They stamped it on there. So I had to go through and make carbon copies and stamp each copy and put the carbon paper in between and put it on my clipboard. So and also at Office Depot, I made up like 500, I believe, 8.5 by 11 pastel green flyers, which at the time was, and I learned this from landscape, it doesn't really work as well now in today's day and age, but at the time you could kind of fold it up long ways with the wording on the outside, just one-sided, and I would slide it in the middle of like between the flag and the mailbox, where the flag was on the mailbox. It's illegal to be messing with mail, but it's illegal to get inside of the mailbox. But if you're on the outside, technically, now they crack down, I think, on a little bit more. But so I went out, set out to do that, and sort of, my flyers, I figured I'd go and put those on, on mailboxes and knock on doors, And so I went and knocked on first house, no one was home. Knocked on the second house, no one was home. Literally, I kid you not, knocked on the third house. It was a Japanese guy. He owned a Japanese restaurant around the corner. And he said that State Farm had already been there, had already left a check for him and an estimate on the roof, and he wanted an estimate. I was a little hazy on how to do that at the time. Funny, since I'm an estimating guru now. But at the time, it was very difficult for me to put together an estimate for him and make sure I had it right,
Yeah.
So, but I ran the numbers, and I came up with $7,000. The company I was working for didn't require any money up front from anybody that they signed up, and I thought that was asinine, really. I mean, how am I going to get them to pay me any money if I didn't bring them any money? And I intended to go in there and ask them for money when I signed people up. I needed money. I mean, I needed it to continue to pay. I went there with everything I had. So I wrote up an estimate for $7,000 and asked them, and put on the proposal form and wrote it out all nice and item by item, and put down the total and the deposit. I didn't put deposit, I put first installment, $3,500 in parentheses 50%, balance due upon completion. Slid it across the table to him with a place for his signature right there, handed him the pen, and he actually really signed it. And he said, who do I make the check out to? So I got the check Went back to the office. These clowns that were running it weren't really the real people, like the owners. So I asked, I need a check. If I'm gonna turn this in, I need a check, you know. And they're like, oh, that's not how it works. Yeah, but it also how it works is that you don't require them, you know, any upfront money from anybody. And also how it works is you guys said you had it going on here. And you don't even have signs. You don't have contracts. And you don't have this, that. And I went out there and made the impossible happen, you know, all by myself. And I have a check here for $3,500, but I'm gonna need a check for you to get this check. And so they get the owner on the phone from St. Louis, Missouri. Out of town dude, right? He gets on the phone and he hears, you know, they told him a story, and he's kind of on the phone to kind of tell me how it is and how things work around here. But then I told him my story, and then he goes, well, wait a minute. Did you say you have a check? And I said, yeah. He goes, how much is the check? I go, $3,500. And the contract is how much? I go, 7,000. How many squares? I don't remember how many squares it was. He goes, okay. But put them back on the phone. And he put them back on the phone, and then he wanted to talk to me again. He said something to them. He put him back on the phone, and then he was like, listen, it worked out. They're going to write you a check now for $700, which is 10% of them. But the thing we want to talk to you about is we want you to go get more of these. So, I mean, but that didn't last long, you know. Like I was not about to stick around for a company. Like, I was able to pull a few more checks out of them, get things going, you know. Thanksgiving was like a month after I went there, and the goal was either to go home for Thanksgiving or to get my wife down for Thanksgiving, which I was able to do. Long story short, went to work for about 15 different companies during, you know, a few month period of time. They were all jokers. They all had problems. They all had flaws. They all had things that they did that was either unethical or just stupid. And, you know, one of the things I learned was that these insurance estimates that I kept looking at, they all looked the same, no matter who the insurance companies were. The prices looked very similar. The format was the same. And, like, it looked like they were using the same program to write this up. But the prices were a little bit different. Couldn't figure it out. Come to find out, there's a software program called Xactimate made by Xactware. And so I called the software company. This is the company that all the insurance companies use to write all their estimates. Come to find out, they're all using the same prices, different per market. And they update, at the time they update every quarter. Now they update every month. And so I contacted Xactware and I said, how could I get this program? And they said, we'll send you a copy of the disc. It's like, you know, it was like $100 and something. I think it was $150 a month at the time, which I thought was steep, but it was worth it. So at the time you couldn't just download it. They had to send me, I had to wait for them to send me this copy of this disc. I couldn't wait to get this program. I got it and taught myself how to use it, and very quickly became a specialist, because construction companies don't have, at the time, no contractors ever used Xactimate. So I kept getting screwed over by these contractors, kept getting, you know, major sales for them. I ended up being put in these situations where I was doing all the estimates for all the sales reps at the company, you know, and then I would get screwed. And so I finally found my own licensed contractor in Florida and put together my own company and started up shop. Basically found I was going to get screwed by this company, and all these sold jobs were on the board, and I had these relationships with these people. I thought they were going to get screwed, and I went and formed a company and went and sat down at dinner tables of these people, and 4 of those meetings, of those conversations at a table, at a kitchen table with me saying, listen, you're going to get screwed basically. Here's how I know. Here's the documentation. But here's me, and here's what I, you know, and I have a licensed contractor here, and I've started a company, and I want you to come with me and have confidence in me that I'll carry you through and see this through, and you'll get everything done, and blah, 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 right? Well, they hadn't paid any money yet to the other company, so 4 couples I was able to convince to sign and give me a down payment, and the rest was history, you know, like, so I mean, I did massive hurricane damage, and, you know, about a year or so into that, then I moved my wife down, got a nice house, you know. About a year or so into that, Hurricane Wilma hit South Florida. And we're talking about Miami-Dade County, we're talking about Broward County, we're like Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach County, Boca Raton, one of the most wealthiest counties in America. And all 3 of those counties just got destroyed. by Hurricane Wilma. I mean, it was one of the, I think it still remains like the top 5 costliest storms in the history of the nation. It was really devastating. And I had an inside contact down there who was a handyman, a Cuban guy, was in a Cuban community. Went down there the day after the storm. It was a Friday, I think, Thursday or Friday. By Monday, I had 24 contracts. So,
it's pretty impressive.
After that, worked, several hurricanes and started, another company in Texas. General contract, got into fire and water because I wanted to stop relying on Mother Nature. Fire and water happens all the time. And then I became a specialist in fire and water. The next challenge was commercial, doing that on the commercial level, large loss. Became a specialist in that. But the catch was I was became 85 pounds overweight with high blood pressure. So I didn't like all aspects of the job, the business, right? I didn't like the production end of it. I think I was good at it, but I didn't enjoy it. It was not a passion of mine. And I felt like, if I could ever get out of this, I will. And I was fortunate enough during a hailstorm to make an exit, make a deal with another company that wanted to get into the market. And I got out, and I was able to buy enough time to figure out what my next step was. And so I wanted to do it right. I wanted to do what made me happy, what I enjoyed, because I was having a daughter at the time, and I knew that that's what mattered the most. I cared about my health. I was losing my life with my high blood pressure and overweight. And so I thought, what is it that I do that I love the most? And what that is inspections, estimates, and supplements. That's it. That's what I do the best. Relevant to, are you going to be first to something else? I think I was first to be in that, amongst some other people that maybe not around now. But I was first. Make no mistake about that. And so now I transitioned my business away from the right, but is their whole sales force going to do it right? And so we've decided that we're going to do it right no matter what. And so we're only going to do it if we go and get the documentation ourselves. And so now we remain the only supplementing company, because that's not what we are anymore. We're not a supplementing company. We have gone all in on inspections and estimates. And on the supplemental side of it, where we're supplementing, we now train and offer consultation, high-level consulting to our clients to show them how to do that on a whole different level. But make no mistake about it, dealt with thousands of insurance claims, have reviewed thousands of insurance estimates, and I'm still relevant today because I know what State Farm and USAA and Chubbs and Vericlaim and all the rest of them, what they're doing today. And that's what I think what it takes to remain relevant is the act of doing by being an operator and by being a practitioner.